Hey there, welcome. Lotus here. I have been absent for a while on YouTube and even a little bit on Patreon, even though I'm trying to be more consistent on Patreon. And of course, members have your regular your membership benefits that I'm getting to. But what I wanted to talk about and just sort of shine a light on is that along this journey of our awakening process, there are definitely phases and stages of deepening and initiations. So when I sort of fall off the radar for a while, it's really because I'm going through another deepening and initiatory phase and stage of my own journey. And I want to tie this in with something that maybe we don't talk about very often. We talk about phases and stages, right? I'm always correlating everything with phases and stages along the awakening process, our ascension process. And of course, I come from the perspective of embodiment, sacred embodiment. So everything has to do with that specific path. There are very predictable phases and stages of this journey. Now, when I say predictable, I don't mean that we know necessarily everything or that everything is completely understood. But there are expected levels of consciousness and awareness that take place from the time before we start to wake up, right? When we're just kind of like going around our daily life, doing our daily things, really more plugged into the 3D construct, right? When our egoic construct is fully intact and operating from, our personality, let's say our personality modes of development. And then there comes that event, and it's usually an event that takes place. It's usually some kind of crisis turning point that begins to trigger this process of our awakening journey. And everybody is so unique, right? We're all going to have such deeply intrinsic, subtle, and unique nuances of our path and what our path is meant to be and how our path of our awakening and our development unfolds. And yet, once you've been at this for a while and you start looking around the collective, you start to recognize the themes. So the phases and stages that I talk about often, they're kind of like tinier phases and stages within a larger level, or we could even say octave of the frequency and consciousness that we're working within. There's a bandwidth that we hold that expands and grows of more light, of more energetics that are operating on higher levels of operation, right? Our operating system, which is our sacred technology, goes through stages and phases of development. So I did a video recently over on Patreon. I shared it, where we're talking about the sacred technology of the chakra system. And the larger themes of our tapestry, right, that we're moving through on this epic journey have stages where we hit as collectives. And those are usually these initiatory, larger shifts where we're moving from one level of consciousness, one level of knowing, of reality, of experiencing, to the next level. And those tend to be what I call initiatory junctures. These junctures require, if we're paying attention, longer processing and integration, and a deepening of our own internal connection to know thyself, as well as a shift from living from within rather than living from the outer. Now, does everybody go through all of these? They do, at least similar versions of them in their own way of their blueprint, if they're staying on track. And so what I mean by staying on track is that it's very easy to get looping in one level of our spiritual experience, of our spiritual development. And this is why I try to make things that are broken down into phases and stages, and why I try to bridge the gap, right, between the polarities to sort of bring us all through the phases and stages so that it doesn't feel as complicated, so it doesn't feel as confusing, so we don't get sort of lost in fascination or that, ego pulling us into areas that we don't actually need to go into, or we don't need to hang out in those areas for long. However, if we're not aware that there is a larger outline to this program that we're all on, it's easy to get sidetracked. And getting sidetracked doesn't have to be good or bad. It just depends on what's your intention for your journey. What are you listening to into your soul, and not the mind or the personality? And where are you connecting to divine source in deeper and deeper ways? My experience definitely is that through these different different levels along our development, we're honing different skills and different levels of awareness and different relationship with the realities that both we're leaving behind and that we're stepping into. And why I'm making this, and I'm going to do a longer video that I'm going to put over on Patreon kind of as a class, that really maps out what are these themes, what is the larger outline, so that you don't get sidetracked for too long, or if you are choosing to hang out in certain areas, you're doing it consciously, and you recognize that this is just the scenic route versus the straight shot. And having a map can be super helpful, because without a map, there's enough that we don't know, but then we really don't know. So Gurudev used to talk about it as, would you rather have a map that was made, like we're going back to like map days where we had paper maps, right? Where the topography and, well, even I guess on phones, we know when better routes are taken, right? I don't use navigation really, but I do know that that you get options of routes that are faster, and maybe construction is one area in one area, so you don't want to go that way, so another way would be faster. All of that. The whole point is, would you rather have a map where there's a point of travel, where whoever and whatever is making the map has a bigger overview of the beginning point, the destination, and what's going on in the interim? Or would you rather either not have a map, and some people don't want a map, or have a map by somebody who hasn't actually traveled the route long enough to see the nuances and the trajectories much farther along than where I am or where you are? And the benefits of having a map, the benefits of having the overarching or an overarching awareness to help us navigate this amazing journey, because there's so much in this just individually, right? That comes up that is a mystery, and that we're living the mysteries through us. And every path, right, of our blueprints, right? I might have an embodiment blueprint coupled with a divine union blueprint. That's part of my twin flame blueprint. That's part of somatic, intelligent blueprint. Whereas somebody else over here might have a very intellectual blueprint, a very scientific-based blueprint. Might have the information that would be like this amazing marriage to mine, right? And then somebody else might have this blueprint over here that comes from a whole different paradigm. And yet, all of these paths, because we're working with this continuous evolution of consciousness and embodiment of our soul presence, these are all facets of the larger diamond. And they're all part of the whole. And they all have similarities and common threads that help to keep this undercurrent of oneness that is leading us all through our own unique expressions into where we're going. So I, for one, appreciate having maps and mapping systems. And it seems to be also what I'm supposed to share. So I'm going to be doing something a little bit more detailed that's going to be over on Patreon coming up soon, hopefully this week, because I've done my own deep dives, right? And I want to say something about this. One of the best things you can do for your journey is when your soul is taking you off the rails, meaning either into something completely different than what you've thought with your intellect, with your personality, what it is that you're supposed to be doing, or what it's supposed to look like, or how you're supposed to travel. One of the best things you can do is follow your own inner navigation, your intuition that's taking you off your own beaten path, or rather your own worn path into a seldom beaten path for you. and allow time to kind of reorient. Let yourself be reoriented. Let yourself shift. Let yourself go through your initiations of not knowing, of letting go, of having to go into deeper faith and trust with and in the divine, with source, with the universe, whatever that is for you, right? Because those are the leaping points in our spiritual evolution. If we think we know where we're going all the time and what it's supposed to look like, and we stay in that box, that might be your path. And most likely it's not, but who knows? Everybody's different. For the majority of us on this path, on this journey, we're going to be forced to reorient ourselves to lives and situations and people, places, things, and connection points to source that we probably never saw coming. And when we allow ourselves to do that, allow yourself to unplug from everything that you've known. Because the more you stay plugged in to what is familiar and what is known, again, based on your blueprint, right? If you have a family, if you're raising kids, your blueprint might be very different than my blueprint. And so you're probably not going to be given some of these processes. You're going to have your own processes to go through. But when we come out of our own box again and again and again, that's where our expansion happens. So that was all to say that, like, this whole year feels like it's been layers of this consistently for me. So I'm disappearing a lot, and then I'm coming back with new things, right? I'm getting ready to redo my whole website again because I just did at the beginning of 2024, and it's just become obsolete and irrelevant for the most part. So that can be tiring in and of itself. However, it is what it is, and that's what we're doing, right? That's what my whole team, the deepening of my own soul presence, this is what we're doing. And unification and divine union is calling more and more all of these pieces to come together in a new way. So I'm going to be doing the video. I'm not sure when, but I'm going to do my best to get it up. If you are not on Patreon, then I would love for you to come over and join me over there. I'm going to hopefully, maybe I'll even have it up by the time I post this. That's kind of my plan. But hop over there. You can join for a free membership. You can join for a paid membership. The paid membership is going to be growing a little bit. There's more that's also available for free members because I want it to be accessible for everybody. But this is going to be for those that are paid and free members, this class. Because that is the only way really that I can kind of keep track of of my content, and I really want to offer content to those of you who are really resonating, and I want it to be special for you, right? I want it to be a benefit for you. And so that's how I'm kind of working it, because I appreciate whether you're paid, whether you're free, your energy, your presence. I love it if you comment, if you give a little like or heart, just like I do on the YouTube. It's super appreciative. I'm super appreciative because then I can just track, who am I talking to, or at least like I don't really know on YouTube, but get a sense of who I'm really connecting with so I can continue to energetically connect with you and support you and what is landing. So it gives me information and feedback so I can better do my job of service. All right, so I'm going to leave it there. And I hope to see you over on Patreon. Link will be below. Thank you so much. And I do appreciate any liking or subscribing. All right. Many blessings. Much love.